Hello, people of YouTube, it's Deepak here, and welcome to the DCS news for the 19th of April, 2025. I hope you all enjoyed that, my most recent video, all about the radar mapping mode of the FCR in the Apache. Exciting content, allowing you to get a bit of situational awareness while you're looking at your targets and spamming them with radar hellfires. It's the only way to live. So, yeah, we've had a rather exciting week. Also, extra points if you can figure out what I've changed in the way that I recorded that video. It wouldn't have been apparent during the premiere because YouTube has this funny premiere mode where it's like in a streaming mode as a lower bitrate codec and it only does 1080p and blah, 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 blah. So once you actually watch it back later in full 1440p goodness, 60 frames a second, you may notice what I changed. So comment on that if you do. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Welcome Tea Kettle Barbecue, and thank you very much for the donated copy of the Cold War Germany map that I received from you. I was actually flying that a little bit earlier, and we will talk about that later in the stream. Welcome to the stream, Tog. Welcome, okay, yes, welcome. And also welcome the one and only John Bloor. Oh, hi.
Hello. How you doing, sir?
I'm very good indeed. It's that felly. Did you notice what I changed? Actually, you wouldn't have done because you were sitting here in the call with me.
yeah, exactly. And also, I was making a coffee beforehand. So, yeah, sadly, yes. I will catch up on your FCR video.
Okay.
Yeah, but I will, yeah.
Remember,
what did you change? What was it? Was it, because I watched like a brief moment of it. Was it a, I could be wrong. Was it a format, like different format?
It's not aspect or anything like that, but yes, no. It is in relation to the way the video is formatted. It's not really the content of the video, but it's the format I've changed. So we'll see how many people pick up on that. The thing is, not everybody. This will give it away a little bit, but perhaps not everyone has the hardware to actually enjoy this very slight change. So anyway. We'll see. But yes. And of course, smash that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Because that's super duper. Also worth mentioning, again, as I did last week, I'm going to have a little chat session with Deepak's ground crew on the Discord server after the stream. If you'd like to kick back and chat about the things we discussed today.
Going to be plenty to discuss.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to the stream, Sean81. Welcome, Viking Cat. I think Viking Cat likes you, John Bloor. Anyway, welcome Crash Ed. Welcome Stuart McLean. Welcome Pink Floyd. Yes. Time for coffee. And in fact, our boy John Bloor is enjoying his coffee.
Absolutely, with my bottom mug with good old Rick Mail on the front.
Eddie!
Eddie!
And Mr. Fuselig, welcome to you as well. Welcome to the stream. So, yes, we're going to start, as we always do, with the Eagle Dynamics newsletter. Let's jump on in here. Dear fighter pilots, partners, and friends. So Eagle Media proudly brings you the Cold War map. This map includes much of Germany and portions of Poland, Czechoslovakia, France, and the Low Countries. It is focused on the 1980s, but offers endless gameplay scenarios across this front line of the Cold War. Ugra Media has created an exceptionally rich map, offering an astonishing level of detail. The exciting new battlefield guarantees endless gameplay with the highest level of fidelity. And they desperately want us to watch the trailer. And for some reason, you've gone and disappeared. Let me see if I can tweak this a little bit.
Back again.
Are you back now? There we go. Again, it's having full screen content. It doesn't like it.
Yeah,
it's terrible. So we have here the DCS Cold War Germany launch video from Ugra Media, and I rather enjoyed this one. I thought it was pretty good. And like I mentioned a moment ago, I did fly the Germany map a little bit earlier in the day in the C101, and it is most splendid.
Yeah, it looks really good. I think, generally speaking, I've seen a couple friends of mine streaming this, and people also both firsthand of watching them, also talking to them, and the overall consensus is this is one of the most detailed maps that they've seen. It is like absolutely. Some people are saying it's very early days. This is one of the best maps to date, if not the best.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they're saying a lot of them are saying the performance is absolutely astounding. Like there has been very little hitches, very little lag spikes, even on, there's a couple servers now that have kind of populated it and put some complex missions and stuff already on multiplayer. Because that's usually where you see those kinds of like, even if it's micro stutters, it will be low level, multiplayer, lots of scripts going. And they said very little, if any. So it's extremely. I don't know if there's been some new technology being involved in this, but if they can, if it's on release this good, at least performance wise and like fidelity wise, it bodes pretty well for like future optimizations and future maps. Yeah, it's so. As far as the actual work has been done, I think here this could be one of the most groundbreaking maps. It's also probably for me on a personal level, I think this is one of the most interesting. I grew up probably like you with a lot of flight sims, which were basically all about Boulder Gap, Cold War gone hot, that whole situation. And all the books that I had as a kid and all of the Eurofighter there. And
Yes,
all
I
of the
noticed that one.
yeah, that's a cheeky little fun they fit in there. But yeah, all of that stuff, I grew up with, and I think a lot of us did. So yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, it's a vibe, isn't it? That 80s Cold War gone hot vibe. You're seeing it with games like Warno and even back in the day, was it Operation Flashpoint, Cold War
Yes.
Crisis, and all that kind of stuff. Even though it's not Boulder Gap, it's still that kind of vibe, isn't it? So
oh yeah.
cool.
I liked them opening with 99 red balloons as well. I thought it was
that was fantastic. I was surprised it wasn't some like Rammstein later on, but the night is still young. Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be good. Welcome to the stream, LJ. Mr. Fuslig just bought a new SSD for the Cold War map. I had to uninstall other maps to get this one on. But yeah, actually, your comment about the performance, yes, I can give my personal experience. I was flying in VR, and flying in VR, it was completely smooth, and that's where you're generally going to experience the worst performance. Although in saying that, I was only flying the C-101, so no complex avionics, no screens of any kind. But I took a nice little flight around Lubeck and Hamburg, and really enjoyed it. And the detail, as you can see in the video here, the detail in the cities and other urban areas is kind of amazing. Actually, even just like the elevation, I've flown in and out of Lubeck in Microsoft Flight Simulator, funnily enough. No, actually, no, it was an X-plane. It was even earlier. And I remember the little kind of bump up on one end of runway 07 that you have when you come off the taxiway. It has like kind of a lump up onto the touchdown area, and it's represented. I was taxiing the C-101 and I did my usual climb up off of the taxiway onto the runway.
That's awesome.
So that was really cool to see that represented there. X-plane has always had really good geometry, like on the taxiways and the runways. Tiger DCS, welcome. Stuart McLean, welcome. Osprey, welcome. Byron Farrow, lots of grunting in this video. I was worried my wife would be a bit concerned about what I was watching. Okay. Byron Farrow, take it back. That was the new red flag video. Yes, indeed. LJ was in Berlin in 1984. Pink Floyd took a real beating on the FPS and the Chinook, even with all the MFDs off. Other choppers were much better. The Chinook is quite early access, though, so I'd imagine it's not fully optimized. Pet Hell, Ugro made my hometown into a Soviet ghetto. Big smile. Over detailed Germany ports, I should have said. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So, Mangash, no excuse for no NAM map. Well, our boy Daddy Wags has said that he does want to bring that to us at some stage. It's just not going to be right now.
I mean, at the very least, you can say with the level of detail of this, it's a step in the right direction, and it sounds like they're getting better and better at optimizing these. So, yeah, really, really cool. Especially when you're seeing a third party really get into grips with the TDK. That's really good. You'd expect it from Eagle Dynamics, considering it's their engine, but for a third party to be able to jump in and do this. To be fair, though, I mean, Ugra, they were Syria, wasn't it? They did
Syria, they did, and Normandy 2.0.
Normandy. Yeah.
and something else. I can't remember
Am I
now.
right? Yeah, but like Syria's like absolutely
Syria's amazing.
fantastic,
Yeah,
and
and
Normandy as well.
there's a reason why the Syria map has become the kind of de facto standard map for
Mm,
DCS. Like everybody
yeah,
flies that.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, no, it's definitely encouraging.
Hmm.
I always, like I said, I always try to see things from a pragmatic kind of um, positive but not naive point of view, and I think this is definitely really encouraging to see how they've done really well in this. So
Yes.
all I'd say is, and I think everyone can say this, well, obviously also massive well done for Ugra. I mean, it's come out, especially like I said on release. There's always been this little bit of a curse, isn't there, with DCS when things release, something
Yes.
goes wrong, and it seems to be, of all the things, the Cold War map seems to be the one thing that's sort of gone really nicely with this update. So yeah, it's cool.
Yes. So yeah, we have the blurb here. No other location better exemplifies the Cold War between NATO and the Warsaw Pact forces than the Iron Curtain separating
Yeah.
East and West Germany in the 1980s. So yeah, this is a 980 by 800 kilometer map. It's going to include varied terrain, rolling hills of southern Germany, the flat northern European plains that served as the corridor to countless historical battles, and the coastlines of the Baltic Sea. The low-level terrain detail makes this map a must-have for attack aircraft and helicopter pilots who just love flying at treetop height. So this is the early access launch. This is phase 1. This includes 59 bases, 4 heliports, 27 general aviation airstrips, 40 pre-placed SAM sites, and summer textures. Phase 2 will give you an additional 10 air bases, along with spring and autumn textures. Phase 3 will add 51 more air bases, winter textures, and the Cold War assets pack, which sounds
Mm.
very interesting. I think this is where we're going to get a bunch of kind of period accurate tanks and the like.
Yeah, that'd be very cool. I can see things like Leopard 1s and, M60 TTSs and stuff like that. That'd be really cool.
Yes, all that fun stuff. So during
Mm.
early access, it's going to be $55.99 US dollary dues, and after phase 3, it'll jump up to $69.99. Currently, you only need 110 gigabytes of storage, but you will eventually need 205 of God's own gigabytes in order to enjoy this particular map. And they're also recommending 32 gigabytes of system RAM and 8 gigabytes of video RAM. So
Mm.
make sure that you are suitably equipped. And yeah, we've got highlights. Buildings come with destruction states. All East German bases feature authentic RSBN navigation beacons. Yes, only the MiG-21 supports that. Oh wait, the L-39 also has those. So yeah,
Mm.
you've got 2 aircraft that can actually use those.
Yeah.
Densely placed ground objects throughout the map, but important areas are left open for mission builder object placement for costume scenarios. Detailed SAM and AAA sites are scattered throughout the map and co-located with many airfields that can be populated with your air defences of choice. So, there you go. The Germany
Mm.
map.
Yeah.
I wonder, should we just go straight into the trigger discussion about map fatigue
Yeah.
at this point?
Yeah.
Because it feels like it's probably kind of, a good time to do exactly that.
A little bit of a segue, yeah.
Yeah, a segue, if you will.
Mm. Mm.
So our boy Tricker, who may or may not be watching, he does seem to
Mm.
pop in occasionally, put out a video. Was this today? This was a day
I
ago.
Ironically, he put it out, and I believe him when he said this. He said he put it out because it was on the cards. Obviously, we knew that Cold War was coming, and he put it out like 30 minutes before they released. So it's all these people are sitting there going, "That's very serendipitous," and I just think it was a case of just good timing or bad timing, depending on how you want to see it. But yeah, I mean, if you haven't watched this video, it's an interesting watch actually, and it's
Yes.
definitely the reason why I wanted to kind of cover this is because it sparked a bit of a discussion, and I think it's a very fair discussion actually. His video, some people, I've seen some people saying, he's kind of moaning, and obviously there is a little bit of that kind of in the DCS as a whole,
Uh-huh.
a little bit of that sort of cynicism, as we know.
I don't see it as a moan at all.
Yeah, no. I actually, when I watched this video, it was pretty evident that it's not that at all, and actually, it's actually got very little to do with Cold War Germany or Ugra. In fact, I think he says, was it at the end, why I'm not hyped for it yet?
Yes.
And I think the point he raises is the issue of this map fatigue, so to speak. So a lot of people have spent a lot of money over the years, and a lot of time investing into all these different maps that we've got for DCS.
Yes, I'm here.
And exactly. Everyone can put their hands up for that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that what's happened is that people are just like, oh, there's another map, there's another map. And there's a couple really big issues that this is causing. And I think definitely watch this after, guys, after our discussion, because
Don't watch
I'll
it
let
now,
Trigger.
because
Yeah, don't watch it now.
we're well worth listening to live.
Absolutely. And I don't want to spoil it, but he definitely brings up some really good points. And actually, we noticed that it looks like Nick Gray himself has
He
commented
did. Yes.
on the video as well, basically saying, yeah, sounds like you got a bit of a point here. And there's a lot of comments. This is the other reason why I thought I'd bring it up, because there's been a lot of comments in there discussing it. And I'd say majority of them, people kind of agreeing. Now, anecdotal, obviously, if you post a video about anything, if you say, I love cups of tea, you're going to get lots of people agreeing with you about cups of tea. If you love coffee, you're going to get that. So you're always going to kind of attract the people who agree with you with these sorts of things. But I think generally speaking, yeah, there needs to be a way that we're going to have to. I think DCS really needs to have a look at a new approach to maps.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing, I think, this is the biggest one for me, and I don't know if it is for you. It's storage. I mean, we just saw here. What is it? Phase 1 is
gigabytes. It will be eventually, and yeah, during phase 1, it's 110.
Yeah. Now here's the thing: when you're downloading that and unpacking that, you need around double, because it needs to download it and then unpack it.
I think it downloads something in the region of 50 to 60 gigabytes, and then it unpacks to be 110.
Yeah. So, if it was, say, the 205 one, you're going to probably need about 100 gig on top of that for it to unpack 300 gigs. And as we know, price of storage isn't always cheap, especially for things like SSDs, which is generally encouraged that you put these things on. And especially if you've got M.2 drives and things like that, it's expensive stuff. Yes. And I think this is starting to create a bit of a barrier. Now, if that's just one, when you think of one map is bigger than most games, that you get on something like Steam, just a map for a game, and then you throw in all the other maps, you start throwing in all the other modules that you have, and there's very little there's very little utilities to help sort of monitor and control this. Also, one of the big things is that you can only install this all in one directory at this current moment.
Yeah.
So
without funny tricks that only some of us know how to do. Yeah, it all has to be in the one drive.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a problem, right? Because I've got multiple SSDs. You can get, especially SATA SSDs are a really good option for if you needed additional space. Everyone's got SATA, space for SATA drives, and you got the additional SATA tape on there and everything. But M.2s are not most Mobos probably have one, if not two at max.
Many of them only have one.
Many of them only have one, and if that's what your install is, and it's not like you can just easily swap them out, and put another one in, or 2 or 4 gig, because if that's what your Windows installation on, there's a whole process of having to clone it and put it on all that stuff. So when you can only install your maps to the same directory as the game install, that starts to cause a massive problem. And so you're basically having to pick. I probably will get Cold War Germany. It was very, very high chance I will. But the issue I have is that I've now got to uninstall either Cola or Sinai, because I can't fit it all. So in future, if someone's like, oh, dude, do you want to come and fly on Sinai map with us on this or that, I have to then go, okay, I'm gonna have to uninstall it and then re-download the new one or whatever, and jiggle this stuff around. Whereas if there was some sort of utility for us able to install in different directories, that wouldn't be an issue. That's one small thing I think would be huge. And I'd even go so far to say it would be really useful. I don't know if anyone uses Mac OS much, but one of the things that's really nice about it is when you go to, people have opinions on Mac OS, but one thing that's really nice is when you go to manage your storage, it shows everything nice and visually. So it will break up color wise on bars and stuff. It will break down all of your and there's lots of software that does this by the third party, but at least that's a good reference point. It'll break down like what's taking up the amount of space, so you're able to kind of administrate it a little bit. So okay, this module's taking up this amount of space compared to everything else. This is taking this up, blah 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 blah.
It's
I
actually
think something.
Steam effectively has this tool.
Mm.
Like, yeah, when you go into the storage management in Steam, it looks pretty much exactly like that, which is nice.
Yeah, great example. So Steam's a great, again, Steam doing something fantastic there. Another thing with Steam, I know it's not necessarily for games, but you can have multiple directories for Steam games, which is quite nice. It's not quite the same as one game, but
Steam has already solved this problem. Yeah.
Because
I'm already in the position where I'm effectively streaming maps. So, like, I only ever have like 2 maps installed because that's all the space I have, given all the aircraft that I have installed. And I don't like installing and uninstalling my aircraft. So what I'm tending to do is uninstall the previous map that I was playing with and then download the next one. And then when I'm done with that one, I delete it and I download a different one. So I'm constantly downloading these maps over and over and over again.
Yeah. And so and that's what you're having to do. And then one of the things that I can relate to this, and a lot of people saying this, they go, right, I bought, Scenario map, I bought Cola. It's very lovely, it's absolutely fantastic, but I'm never really using it. And so that then opens up another discussion about there's two kind of prongs to this, which is the whole sort of chicken and egg issue, which a lot of people have, which is people are not necessarily either installing, buying, or whatever a certain map because there's either not the servers that are running it, or there's not the or at least populated servers, and then there's not the single player campaigns or necessarily missions, and it's that kind of build it and they will come issue. It's a very like chicken and egg. Like from the player perspective, they're like, well, I don't really have that map installed, or I wouldn't buy it, or blah blah blah, because I'm not seeing the servers or I'm not seeing the campaigns. And then the campaign builders and the server owners are like, well, we're not going to use up our server, our dedicated server on a map that nobody's going to fly on because no one's got it installed. It's this real tricky issue.
Yeah.
And it's like, how the hell do you deal with that?
We struggle with this a little bit in the VAF because, of course, in the VAF, we make missions that we want to run on mission nights. And to decide what maps are kind of okay for us to choose, we check our membership and see who owns what map. And unless like 95% of the pilots have a map, we can't really use it because you don't really, even if it's only a handful of people that you're excluding, you don't really want anybody from your group to be like, oh, I can't play tonight because they're on this map that we don't have. So it becomes difficult. And Tricker kind of makes this very point. He's like, unless you have people to bring with you, then it's like going on vacation on your own, taking a bunch of photos and then leaving. It's like, oh, that was fun, but I'm not coming back. So that is pretty much it. If and perhaps we need to look at different ways of different ways of building the business case around these kinds of things. So of course things like subscriptions for I don't know, at least the online section of the game, perhaps. I guess when it comes to single player, there isn't really a problem here. Like single player, it'll just work. You buy the maps you want to fly on, and you buy the campaigns you want to fly on them, and then it's all just a dealt with problem. But as soon as you're dealing with other people, then it is actually quite a detriment to be able to form a group and have them all fly together. And you do. I've seen some people in chat say, "Oh, there is no problem." I think it depends on your use case. For many of the use cases, yes, it's probably fine. Like definitely flying solo, or situations where all of your friends already own the same maps, then it's fine. But as soon as one person doesn't have it or doesn't intend to buy it, you're fragmenting the player base.
Absolutely. So I'd say, I mean, we discussed this a little bit, but I've kind of got three ways I think that you could address this, and by no means, by the way, are these final or be all and end all.
All encompassing.
So I think for the storage issues, I think generally speaking, I mean, one way you could look at it is there a more efficient or a better way of maybe compressing some of these files down, or also like we were saying about when it downloads these files, can it do it in a way that it doesn't have to kind of package it up and kind of almost duplicate the map if you were to do an update or you were to download it or whatever.
Or you look at the Microsoft Flight Simulator solution where effectively the terrain is streaming.
Yeah, effectively, yeah. So that's the one thing, and then the other thing is, like I said, if we could have it where you can install on multiple drives, or
Yeah.
you could have you could have a folder on a different drive, which is even just for the maps, just for the maps are the biggest parts, aren't they? I mean, it's crazy actually. I reinstalled the I think it was the Hornet or something. Well, I was like, I haven't flown the Hornet in ages. And it was like about 1.5 gigs, and I was like, I for some reason I just remember it being way bigger. I was like, actually, it's kind of tiny.
Most of the aircraft modules are not that big.
No, exactly. So they're not really the problem. I think is especially for the terrain. So even if there's just a solution for the terrains to be put onto different drives, that certainly won't hurt anyone. And if people already have a gig, 4 gig, whatever terabyte or terabyte, sorry, M.2, that's great. That doesn't really affect them. And like you said, for certain people who are playing mostly single player, it's not as much of an issue. It's also not as much of an issue if you're in a, well, I think Trigger might have even said this. If you're in like a small squadron and you all kind of what's the word? You kind of collaborate well, and you all know, yeah, we're going to work on this map this month, or we're going to fly on this. It makes it a lot easier. So there's different ways people can get around it. But I think this, especially for the storage, I think being able to do that would really help. I think the second thing I think which would help, and this is more to this is to help with the release of these maps. Now they are getting better at this, by the way, and I'm sure people are going to come up with examples of this. Like for instance, I think it was the contention server. Very quickly, they were able to turn around a server running the Cold War Germany map for multiplayer, at least. But one of the things I think is having a bit more release planning for some of these maps would be really cool. And by that I mean, now that you could go to one direction of even saying like, there's like the Bow 105 being worked on, or the G91 and stuff like that. That you release
Allegedly, the B105 is being worked on.
allegedly, yeah. But you have modules that kind of release together, because it's like what's the comment we've seen from loads of people, even to some degree from Wags when he was streaming himself. He's like, I'd love to fly a Tornado around here. It just feels right, doesn't it? So that's one, like, that's a bit more of an extreme example, but trying to kind of sync everything up. That's quite tricky, obviously, to do that. But I would say even release planning is so far as working with like some of the multiplayer server owners, and or some sort of dedicated servers themselves from ED, where there's a bit of an event. We as the map releases, they put out on a newsletter. We've got this map for the people who do PvE. We've got this for the PvP guys. As a big event for the releasing this map. Here's some cool stuff. Here's some places you can fly. Also potentially some mini campaigns, or some really cool single player maps made by the guys like Baltic Dragon and those guys. Those guys are like pros at this. Get them to release like a couple missions with it, just to really. The way I'd say it is to get people inspired by these maps, because the problem is they come out. Don't get me wrong, Cold War Germany is very inspiring. It's fantastic, but it gives them. You've got this sandbox now, and it then gives you some stuff. And the great thing about that, especially if you have someone like Baltic Dragon or any of those guys, Reflected, they do a map, and it really showcases what you can do. They're going to do something really awesome. So even the other mission makers will go, oh, awesome, I never thought you could do that. Or that's a really cool way, to kind of build into something historical, or use the map in a different way, or whatever. So I think that would be really, really cool. And I think, especially when you look at how good ED's marketing is, like their trailers, dude, like the Glowing Amram trailers, Jesus Christ, they're so good. They have such good marketing. And I feels like a little bit of a wasted thing for it. And it sometimes again, I'm not going to level this, but it occasionally does feel a little bit like they kind of put some of this stuff out and kind of turn to the community and say, you guys figure it out.
Well,
you figure it out. Here it is.
Yeah. You could say that about the whole game, really, because the whole game is absolutely a sandbox. So the idea is that they're giving us our toys and asking us how we'd like to play with them, which I'm fine with. But there is, of course, that space for the professional campaign makers and mission makers to go and do their thing. And then, of course, there is really cool stuff like the kind of campaign engines that we've seen more recently as well. I was just recently reminded of one of them, which I now can't remember the name of.
Is this for DCS, or is this?
This is for DCS. It was Olympus. Is Olympus one of these systems?
Oh, yeah, where you could generate things. Yeah.
And that was super, super cool. So, like, I'm kind of okay with that. Like, it's not ED's. They just don't have the capacity. Like, there's no way that they could create something totally fully populated and give you something that you can just jump into and immediately play necessarily all the time. So there's definitely a place for that.
I think the instant action generator as well, and then potentially the
That's going to
dynamic
help.
campaign,
Yeah.
that's going to really help with this. So I would say that with that little caveat, that in the future could be a solution to this problem.
Yes, I'm just quickly reviewing chat
Mm.
there, and yeah, they're kind of aping some of the points you're making there, and then
Mm.
also Mountain Man Simulations talking about the being able to install maps across multiple drives is basically an immediate fix for most of these problems.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Then the last thing I'd say, and this is the kind of the last things, at least suggestions that came to my mind for a lot of these problems, because I really tried to think about like this was even before the trigger thing. I was kind of thinking like, how do they address some of these issues with like maps? And we've talked I think before, haven't we, about the idea of you're fragmenting the player base a little bit with each
Yes.
subsequent map, because modules don't really tend to do that. I don't think aircraft modules, but I
No,
do think
not
maps
as
tend
much.
to. Not
Not
as
as
much.
much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Actually, the one thing that we do see with like virtual squadrons is, of course, the latest and greatest shiny aircraft steals all your pilots, but that's a completely different issue.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, the third thing I'd say, and this is much more of a community driven thing and more of a community engagement thing, is I think one way to address this sort of this will address the chicken and egg issue, and this will also address like getting people like excited and engaged with every time there's a new map. I would say some sort of like spotlight schedule. So what the idea I had, I was just straighten this out there, was you'd have like a quarterly terrain spotlight. So the idea is that every quarter, just arbitrarily, I picked a quarter,
Hmm.
where you'd have a specific terrain, could be Caucasus, Syria, or whatever, where they say this is the one we're spotlighting for this period of time. And then with this, we have newsletters each time. You could have a little section in there that talks about maybe a real life historical battle or a real life historical jet that flew
Yeah,
on there.
yeah.
You could say like you could do a bit about the Mirage, say Mirage 3, because that was had a huge deal with like some of the Yom Kippur War and stuff like that. You could talk about some of those battles so that it's almost like a tour of the map itself. So you know a bit more about the map, because we don't all know these things. I'm sure there's loads of things loads of us don't know.
Hmm.
And so that first of all gets people engaged on a historical perspective, and it kind of gets people involved. Another thing you could do as part of that newsletter is say like this is say I know this here's the Sinai map. We're going to talk about Sinai and what's happened here. Then you could say here's some great missions in the user files that some people have created. Here's some that we've curated and we think are great. Here's some campaigns that you can either buy or people have made for free that you can go on there. Here's some even stuff like libraries. If there's an Egyptian library for
You
a
said it
hind or
again,
something.
chat.
What's that? Livery. I know, God, they're all going to freak out now, aren't they? And then the other thing is I would say during that period of time, you could have that map on sale, even if it's 20% off, 10% off, whatever during that period. Another
Yeah.
thing would be quite cool is an extended trial. So you could have whether that's a 2 or 3 week trial where someone could download it, they can try it out, try some of these servers, because if they try out a server and they really like it,
Hmm.
that will make them stick around. And they'll go, you know what? It's 20% off. I've been flying on that server most this week. I've had a really good time. Tell you what, I'm probably gonna buy that map because I'm probably gonna keep coming back to this server or this campaign or whatever. And it just gives people a taster for some of these things. And I
Yes.
don't think it's really I don't think DCS is really losing out by doing that. Again, I don't see where there's much of a negative because it's this quarterly thing, it could be 2 weeks, it could be a monthly, I don't know. But at least that would mean that you move on to the next thing. And so if people don't like it, they were probably never going to buy it anyway if they didn't like it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fair
And
point, I
so
think.
and so just people then feel like they're getting better what's the word, better value for money. It feels like they're getting things that they actually want. They don't walk away with that feeling of I bought this map and I never use it, and then they get a bit. That's all great if you can say from a business point of view, great, we've already got their 80 quid, but all you're really doing long term when you're doing that, and once you do that 2 or 3 times to someone, if they just buy a map that they feel like they never use, you get this so-called map fatigue that
Yes.
Trick is talking about. No one wants that, especially with all the hard work these people are putting into this development time, and especially server owners, everyone's putting hard work into doing this. No one wants to buy something and walk away with that kind of buyer's remorse. So I think that would cut it down a little bit. But that's the 3 things I think. It's like I said, the storage issues, multiple drives, a little bit more planning on release, and that kind of goes into that sort of spotlight schedule. And it just means that people can kind of enjoy these things a lot more. Because I always think it's a shame when I see people whether it's a module, whether it's, we talked about the Razbam stuff and everything. It always sucks when you see people getting like burnt out and kind of bummed out by stuff. You don't want to. I'm sure ED don't want that. I don't think people want to be that way. I don't want to see other people feeling bummed out by that stuff. It's never fun.
Well, and that's exactly when you should just take a step back and be like, okay, I'm not going to touch this for a couple of weeks and see how I feel after that. That's always the right thing to do. Indie Navy talking about symbolic links in Windows as a workaround. We were discussing that in previous weeks, and absolutely that does work, but not everybody is comfortable with that level of technological wizardry. So having something integrated into the launcher would be even better. Osprey commenting that a good way to combat this kind of thing as well is to have more people playing online, but of course there's no way to force people to do that. But I think like DCS is one of those games that once you play it online, like I don't know why you would go back after that. Like if you find a group of people to play with, it's so much more fun flying together. And it's not realistic in any case that outside of Hollywood movies that a single pilot takes on an opponent single-handedly and wins the war and all that kind of nonsense. Like you're flying in squadrons, you're flying in formations. That's far more realistic. Pink Floyd, I'm waiting for Deep to make a VAF for Dummies video. That might help push me to MP. It's all new stuff to me. Yes, you did ask me for that before, Pink Floyd. I should get on to that, like how to join a group like the Virtual Air Force and use your radios and all that kind of stuff. Tiger DCS VAF needs an active F4E squadron. I might sign up. We had one. That's an interesting one. On release, we had an F4 squadron. It had about 20 pilots on day 1. And then by day 2, we had 10. And by day 3, we had 5. And it had that kind of very, very traditional sort of drop. So, the VAF are always open to opening new squadrons if there are, admins willing to run them and pilots willing to fly those airframes. But our experience, sadly, has been a lot of people thought they wanted to fly the F4. Very few actually wanted to fly the F4, which is a bit sad because it is an amazing aircraft and Heatblur have done a great job.
I think that's a lot of girls that I managed to chat up and went out with me over the years. They thought they wanted to go out with me, and then when they finally got hold of it, they were like, "Nah, I'm all right." I became the F4.
Yes.
Once you find out you don't have a modern HUD and you have to uncage things weirdly, and there's a gazillion different switches, you're like, "Oh God, I can see how it can get that way." To be fair,
spends an inordinate amount of time cleaning his mustache.
Exactly. Yeah, a little bit too much. But I want to learn the F4, and I'll admit it's a pretty intimidating module to learn, because there's a lot of things, and like every switch has to be done in the right order. Like I always say, with the one kind of positive about a lot of them MFD jets is you can kind of brute force a little bit, can't you? You can muddle your way through, because as the years have gone by, they kind of improved the ergonomics in jets in real life as well. So you could kind of muddle your way through. With that era of aircraft, you don't know what you're doing. You're more of a danger to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Nice. So yes, and I think I agree with much of what you're talking about there with regards to the maps. I kind of buy most of them, but I have to say I spend like 90% of my time on Syria. It is just the safe default, and the thing is, it already has everything you could possibly want. It's got green bits and sandy bits and mountainous bits and low bits, and you got some water to play with. You got everything. What more could you want? And it's got acrotery. You can just pretend that you're flying for the RAF. It's a good laugh.
Is that just basically VAF?
Yeah, that's pretty much VAF. So, on to the most important part of the news for this week. We got the DTC. Yay!
I still remember when it was first announced that they were going to be doing it very soon, and the first thing I did was I messaged you, because I think I went to message you and you'd already messaged me.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. We have released the initial version of data transfer cartridge that supports custom countermeasures programs and radio presets for the FA-18C and the F-16C. DTC files can be created by a single player and multiplayer pilots prior to entering a mission from the briefing window. Future updates will expand DTC functionality to include navigation, targeting, data link, weapon settings, and much more. Additional development for the AH-64D and A-10C2 is still in the pipeline. DTC files can also also be saved and shared between missions and even your friends if you have any. Please check out this helpful quick start guide and a video. Additionally, when you've created your own DTC file, you can share it via user files under DTC profiles. So this is like super exciting as far as I'm concerned. And of course, as is always the case, we have our boy Matt Wagner demonstrating the system, and it looks really nice. He doesn't actually demonstrate the kind of export and import functionality where you can turn it into a file, but that looks like it is already implemented. He does reference it. And you can make use of these both in the mission editor, so effectively the person creating your scenario can kind of pre-select a bunch of DTCs that you can make. It's also possible to fiddle with them in the kind of join scenario page, and then you can also do it when interacting with the ground crew. So you have a lot of freedom here. Yeah, and on top of that, then of course the ability to export and import these as files. So I guess if you're flying as a squadron, your squadron leader could put some options together and just DM them to you, which is kind of nice.
Really cool. I think this is only the beginning of what we're eventually going to get for the DTC, as we know, and it really opens up. I think you raised a really good, interesting scenario last time we spoke about it, which is probably last week, about maybe having incomplete threat libraries, and kind of you could almost have historical or even country based scenarios where you don't have them, and so you have to respond accordingly. You don't know, is it an SA 10 or an SA8 locking you? You don't know, because you don't have that threat library. Maybe you'll just get a U, or something like that.
Unknown symbols showing up on your RWR, and then maybe later in the campaign you get updated threat libraries and you start actually knowing what it is. We talked about exactly this last week, and I still think that's a really cool and exciting possibility for all of this. I don't know what more to say about it other than I'm really excited, and I hope they add it to more aircraft. I immediately put a forum post into Deca Ironworks side of the forum saying, basically Deca when. Because they already have, alongside the Viggen perhaps, just about the most fleshed out DTC implementation of a module. And so, plugging it into this system would be just absolutely amazing. But I guess they probably need to wait for ED to do some more work on it.
There's probably going to be, I don't know, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to speculate to how exactly they would do it, but I'm sure if they've already implemented their own kind of homebrew version, it's not going to be out of their ability to kind of add it to a third party. It's just probably a case of and like with any of these things, there's bureaucracy involved, as far as it takes a while for things to get sent over. You know how it is in any of these businesses. It takes a while just for an email to get replied to. So it's probably a case of once this gets to a certain point, ED handing it over to the third parties for them to kind of play around with. They're probably not going to hand. But at this stage, I can't imagine they're necessarily going to hand this over to the third parties too soon, just because they're going to probably want to make sure it's all working properly before they do. I think that was one of the arguments, wasn't there? There was a talk, tell me if I'm wrong, but this was back in the before times when there wasn't the RASBAM issues, but there was speak of whether the Tarawa would receive, or even the Invincible would receive, some of the supercarrier functionality.
Yes.
And I think that what I can't remember who it was, whether it's ED or RASBAN themselves or both, said they were just waiting for the supercarrier stuff to kind of be further along before they were able to kind of either get that or be willing to give that over. So we're probably just waiting for that. But this is all really good stuff. I think the DTC will make life a lot easier, and it just allow people to effectively just jump in the game, plan out a bit as well, and have that fun process, but just be able to jump into the game and fly.
The big thing for me is just the added realism, because I didn't even bother making a DTC. I just used the standard one in the mission editor, sitting in the aircraft and being able to go to the DTC page. I've done it in the F-16. I didn't try the mids. No, is it mids? What is the Moomy? Sorry, I didn't even look at the Moomy page in the Hornet. But in the Viper, it was nice being able to sit there and just hit load and see it go through the different partitions and load everything up. This is an extra level of realism that we've been missing. We've been manually punching in values that no pilot would ever manually punch in. They would press that load button and be happy that everything has been entered for them.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure there'd be the odd change, wouldn't there? They'd be like, oh, we've put this DTC, we've found out something last minute, and they probably would have to dial this stuff in. But like you said, it's all done on the ground, unless there's some sort of scramble or something.
Yeah.
Usually speaking, they'd had all this sorted out in the
In the
the
squadron
briefing room.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll tell you one thing I'll just mention about that video. We've not got the audio on it, but the data transfer cartridge video by Wags. But I have noticed a little bit that he's kind of leaning into his introductions a little bit more, which is fun. I think on this one, he went, "Hey everyone, it's Wags here." I was like, "Yeah, awesome."
Nice. Osprey, talking of supercarrier, whatever happened to the briefing room? Yeah, good question. We do have Airboss. That's in and working. I've not heard much more mention of the briefing room. It did even seem like they were getting quite close to having it done, because they were starting to talk about the functionality of the tablets that each of the pilots would have and things like that. So,
and the screenshots of it, isn't there, as well? Like of all the chairs and everything laid up. Do you know what that reminds me of? Do you know? I was literally talking to a buddy about this the other day. Was when you had some of these, especially like the Jane's combat simulations and stuff like that.
yeah.
What you would describe as the diegetic menus. So by diegetic, I mean that you actually were like, you would go into like the locker room to pick your pilot profile, and and then you would go into like the briefing room and all that kind of stuff. I always remember the other thing that used to make me laugh was the copy protection on Gunship 2000 was the whole thing where you'd have to go to somewhere on the map, not the map, the manual, and line 3, paragraph 4, word whatever, all that code.
Yeah.
But what was interesting about that is that the way that they made it kind of diegetic for the game is you were inputting the INU stuff. You were kind of like like aligning it all. I was like, that's a really cool like thing. Now imagine, we talked about the DTC stuff now, but imagine in that planning process, you are in like a squadron room, whether it's on a carrier or an airfield, and that stage where you kind of go into the mission and you plan out your mission. Maybe you are like in a interactive 3D, squadron room, and you are, or a briefing room, and that's where you actually input all the DTC stuff.
Well, I think that this is effectively what ED are trying to do. I wonder if perhaps part of the delay is that they kind of realized that it would make more sense to get the DTC done first, because you're going to be interacting with that on your little tablet in the briefing room.
Yeah.
So might make sense.
Makes sense.
Alrighty. So our boy Wags then demonstrates loading a DTC here in the Hornet, and then also in the F-16. It works exactly as it would in the real aircraft, which is kind of cool. You bring the page up and hit load, basically. There's not much more to it than that. The Moomy page in the Hornet. This one I haven't tried, but I did try the Viper, and it worked really nice.
That's great.
Yeah, and you can load individual pages and so on as well. So very cool. Go and check out Matt Wagner's YouTube channel and watch this video all about the process. Here we go. We're just in time to see him doing the Viper one as well. So let's jump back to the newsletter though. And that wasn't the only thing we got. We got a bunch of core updates. There's a new zoom level for the map, which is very exciting. We've got new persistence support scripting API functions, which is going to work with the mission save features, which is nice. Several AI-specific behavior problems were fixed, and new JTAC voice lines for calling out weapon types were added. Furthermore, specific DCS core optimizations for resource loading have been implemented. This was supposedly they made some tweaks to the terrain engine as well, which are also performance enhancing.
So I noticed I was flying in the Apache, and there are new voice lines by George.
Oh.
Little small things, yeah. This is how sad it is. This is how much I've been flying in Apache. It's not even that he's saying necessarily new things. It's just a different cadence. He's literally saying things in slightly different cadences. And I was like, hang on a minute. He's not said it that way before.
He's messing with us.
I know, exactly. So yeah, it's little. I just noticed that the other day. That was a cool little thing.
Yes, yeah, very much so. Diegetic, new word for today. Osprey saying Wags always reminds me of the fonts. Oh dear. Why do you have to do this to my boy? We're
I
not
know, right?
we're not going to make fun of his appearance. He's a handsome
You
boy.
want to watch out, Osprey. He does actually watch these, apparently.
He watches
That's
these.
what he says.
He used to work for the CIA. He will find you.
Yeah, exactly.
Mrs. is calling. I'll catch the rest later. Good night, all. Says
Yeah, I
Osprey.
think he's quickly getting out. That's a hit and run.
You think it's your Mrs. It's actually
Yeah.
Wax.
He does like a
It's the
Mission
mask.
Impossible masks. He's like, oh, but lovely. What do you want for dinner tonight? And he just turns around. Hey, everyone, it's
Heard you were
Wax."
talking shit.
Amazing. That's funny.
Yes. Anyway, we also this update also refined many of our in-house aircraft. So yeah, they talk about DTC again. We've got sensor fixes, steadier TGP tracking to smoother radar and cursor handling. This is something they already revised a little while back, so it sounds like they're getting it even better, even higher resolution here. Because it used to be the case that if you had a ground radar contact and you slewed your TGP to it, the TGP was kind of doing like and then they made it a little bit better, and clearly they're making it even better now, which is kind of fun. Yeah. So yeah, bunch of fixes, and yeah, they do talk about the George AI being less erratic in this update as well. A whole bunch of really small things, but good stuff to see.
That said, there are some things that are reportedly broken, so we might be getting a hot fix after this weekend. So just a quick little PSA to people: if you are flying in the Apache at the moment, if you can use a hot start, because there's something weird about George at the moment where on certain cold starts, he would just not work at all. He won't lay his targets and he won't fire kilo Hellfires. So it seems to be some sort of cold start issue.
For some reason, you've got me thinking of King of the Hill here. It's just like the boy ain't right.
Yeah, the boy ain't right, exactly. It's always George. Well, actually there's a little bit of even if you're not like auto starting, obviously there's a little bit of when you fire up the Apache, George is he's fiddling with things in the front. He's kind of doing little things, and I wouldn't be surprised if, I don't know how this has happened, but something in that process has been balked. So for now, they're advising, at least this is through Discord, I think it was either Nui or Nineline, said for the moment, just use hot starts where you can. Obviously, it's a little bit unfortunate if there's a single player map or a mission, or a multiplayer server where that's not allowed. But if you can, use hot starts. Apparently, there's also some slightly weird behavior with the AMRAMs again. So again, I don't know. I'm not confirming them.
They have been revised recently, so yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, there's Scuttlebutt says that there's a few small things. So yeah, just keep an eye on that if you are planning to fly on DCS. That you may find a few things, but there is apparently a hot fix for a bunch of stuff already in the works.
Okay. Marvelous. So yeah, that was 2.9.15 that dropped this week, and of course the main items being the Germany map, the DTC, and there was also a new campaign. And yes, this we actually covered last week, but in the newsletter they're calling out the heat blur triumvirate.
Love that word.
Yeah, it's another good word. So yeah, award-winning studio Heat Blur Simulations has bundled its entire DCS lineup into one spectacular offer, the Triumvirate pack. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this word right. So you can have the Viggen.
I can't talk. I can't even say livery correct, or livery, or whatever it is. I'm going to say dead quiet.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Yeah. So yeah, you can have the Viggen, the F-14, and the F-4E in this very, very tasty pack for only $117 dues and 99 centurinos. You can have all of these fantastic aircraft. That works out at $39 each for those of you who can.
Bargain.
Yeah, for those of you who can mathematic.
Yeah. Do you know what's interesting? I just noticed in the newsletter. I'm not reading into the stones, so to speak, but it says with the newly released DCS F4E Phantom with both the DSCG and forthcoming DMAS variants. Why would you mention that unless that's something that's in the pipeline?
Well,
that's the only thing I will say.
We do know it's coming, but we don't really know when.
So yeah.
I guess it's worth calling out. Indie Navy here saying a fix is being worked on. Apparently, this comes via Big Nui.
There you go. Yeah.
Yes, very
Mm.
nice. Tiger DCS CH47F missing from update. Cola map did not get the update, they said. Oh, yeah, and that's the thing that Big
Mm.
Newy says will come, the Cola update. Okay.
Yeah, sure. That's great.
Marvelous. Simply marvelous.
I can imagine trying to get all of these into a nightly is probably quite the process, and I'm sure
yes.
things get missed all the time. I think the fact that if they're as long as they're always willing to hotfix these things, if they are quite a bit of a problem, 'cause obviously now we get what updates once a month or sometimes
Once a
just
month.
over a month. Yeah, so I think just even if there are things that are missing or broken, if they're always willing to hotfix these things, that's a huge help. But I
It's,
understand how it happens. It's
oh, yeah.
unfortunate.
It's not been that big a deal, kind of moving from the kind of 2 separate release trains to having the single one now. It's been fine. It's been pretty good.
Yeah.
If anything, stability is slightly better in my opinion than it was. Max Power, I already have the F14 and I would buy the Phantom and the Vigan. The F14 is kind of an amazing module, really, the more you look at it, because like by the time they're done, how many different versions of the bloody aircraft will we have? It's like 5 in total we'll have in that module, which is sort of insane. And they've included so much cool stuff. You're getting the TARPS pod, you're getting ACLS, you're getting Jester in the back, you're getting more than one version of the Phoenix missile. I think you have 3 versions of the Phoenix missile. It's kind of ridiculous. You're basically getting everything. It's, I don't even know what to say. It's incredible. It's good stuff. And then the Vigan, I'm revisiting the Vigan from time to time. If you don't know much about the Vigan, go and check out my tutorials. I was actually just watching my own tutorials this morning on the Vigan to remember how certain things worked. And I have to say, I did a rather good job. So I made perfect sense to myself. Go and watch those if you want to learn the Vigan. Yes. But I think that's pretty much everything we've got news-wise for this week. Is there anything that we missed, John?
Nothing I can remember. Unless something slipped through the cracks. Yeah,
slipped between our cracks.
Between our cracks, indeed. Yeah. Just having a look through. Just really, really quick through the actual update patch notes. Just seeing if there's anything. Oh, there's a new campaign. There's the F40 Red Flag 81-2 campaign, which is really cool. I think that's on Entity. That's on Nevada, isn't it? I think that one.
It is. I saw that one. That looked rather nice. Yeah, they added this support for the Jester mods in the F4E, which is nice. There's also some audio overhauls and bits and bobs, which is kind of fun. I don't know if there's much to call out apart from that, though. It was pretty standard stuff, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, just going to give a quick shout out to Deepak's ground crew. Well, first I'll say, if you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and comment. And if you want to further support me, then you can join Deepak's ground crew below. That gives you access to the Deepak's ground crew Discord server, where I'm going to be hanging out after this stream for a little while, if anyone wants to have a chat with me. Why would you want to chat to me? I have no clue. No clue whatsoever. I wouldn't. So
I wouldn't, but I'm only here because I'm being like blackmailed. So that's the only reason I'm here. He's got content on me, but so I have to turn up to these things. But
it's the feet pictures. I've got the feet pictures, and I'm going to release them if you don't do as I say. Yes, indeed. So yeah, this will be the time when I normally pimp the VAF. Let me do that just now. Sadly, John's beautiful face will disappear momentarily. But yes, the VAF, or the Virtual Air Force, is a virtual online squadron originally started by myself and Dot Chuckles many moons ago, normally flying on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at about 8 p.m. UK time, and we currently have squadrons for the Harrier, the F-16, and the F-18. If you really want an F-4 squadron, then you're going to have to pony up and actually be squadron leader for it. And yeah, we're always looking for more pilots, but we're also always looking for air traffic controllers, mission makers, livery makers, scripters, all kinds of people. You can join our Discord using the Discord link in the show notes below, and you're very welcome to join us there whether you fly with us or not. So yeah, that's the VAF, the Virtual Air Force. And I'll bring Johnny Boy back now. Pink Floyd, new campaign for the A10C2 in the Afghan was just announced by Ground Pounder Simulations That sounds very exciting. Actually, flying A-10s in Afghanistan, that would be pretty cool. That's going to be fun. So, John.
Yeah.
If people want to follow you, they need to go to twitch.tv/John Blur and press the appropriate button. I wonder if you want to tell us anything about what's going on in your channel these days.
Yeah, not a huge amount, to be honest. Just kind of, a bit of streaming, getting back into that again. The art projects are on the back burner for now, but there might be some stuff in the future. Yeah, I've just mostly been, doing the age-old plugging away, flying around, mostly, like I said, rotary wing, a little bit of Harrier. I'm trying to get the most out of the Harrier whilst I still can. I'm not going to lie. We don't know if it's going to be around forever. So, be flying around with that. And I must admit, that is such a fantastic module. It really, really is. Like I said, I've always said this from day one. Say what you will, Razbam absolutely made some fantastic modules. They really are absolutely brilliant. So, I'm just doing that mostly. I tend to lean mostly towards PvE. Although I don't mind a little bit of PvP as well, a little bit of contention from time to time. I just find that I get absolutely my cheeks absolutely clapped by the regulars, because when it comes to knowing, as any of these things, there's always little metas, isn't there, about what aircraft and what maps, and you'll notice that I always remember, was it Grounding Sidewinder? You'd find that the Su-27s would turn their radar off, get down low, use the IRST, and come up from the valleys, and and then the Hornets would just get super high and try and even get above the cons and try and sort of yeet AMRAAMs long range and stuff. I know on contention, one of the big things is you get up at like 45,000 feet in a Mirage 2000 and just absolutely yeet a Fox 2. And see what you can do, and see if you can slap anyone. Or sorry, a Fox 1, not Fox 2. And that apparently you can get some crazy shots with that. So yeah, it's there's all those kinds of things, and I don't know them all. I won't lie. But put me in Apache, give me some targets to slap, and I'll get the job done. So yeah, that's mostly been what I do on Twitch. I'll probably be on over this nice bank holiday weekend, so you'll see me usually in the evenings on Twitch. So yeah, twitch.tv/John Blur. Yeah,
nice. Hello to you as well, Venom Cinematic. That's too many O's. So I'm Deepak, as you know, and if you want to further support me, you have the option of joining Deepak's ground crew for a small monthly fee. I really appreciate those of you who do so. After this stream, I'll be jumping into the Discord and having a chat with anyone who's in Deepak's ground crew who wants to hang around. But big shout out to those of you who've already supported me. Thank you very much, Channel Right, GR Walker, Fishy's Canal, Mr. Yeti, Sean IM81, John Blur, Tea Kettle Barbecue, Whiskey Dale, Stuart McLean, Mangash, Exorcist, Frantic, Willow Wilson, Byron Farrow, Osprey, Snooblaran, Whoopaz, Laskin75, Interesting Story, Pink Floyd, Samantha, and Alice. Thank you all very much indeed for your support. I've been Deepak. I put out a new tutorial video every Saturday at about 6:30 p.m. UK time, and that's always followed by the DCS news, which just happens to be this thing, what you're watching right now. Thank you all very much for watching. Fly safe, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ta.